So I was heavily debating not even making this video because I believe that Hamza is a YouTuber that has brought a lot of good to the lives of young men, and it generally gives useful advice to his audience as to how they can improve their lives with either diet, workout, lifestyle, etc. And my fear was that if I make this video, people are going to think that I'm taking away from any of that, and I don't want that to be the case. I want this video to genuinely be constructive criticism. Like, I actually want to provide some sort of value with the criticism that I'm giving here. Now, I'm assuming that you know who Hamza is if you clicked on this video, but he is probably one of, if not the biggest self-improvement YouTubers on the platform. He absolutely blew up in the past 2 years, I would say. And if I were to give you a percentage breakdown of the quality of advice that he gives to his audience, I would say 85% of it is very genuinely good advice. Perhaps some of it is repetitive, things you've already heard maybe a million times from other people, but that doesn't take away from the fact that it's good, it's getting out there, it's reaching new people, and on top of that, of course, he's giving new advice, offering new perspectives on self-improvement that people haven't heard yet or considered. Now, that being said, that 15% of maybe not so good advice that he's giving or just straight up bad advice or having bad takes, I think we should be allowed to constructively criticize that and respond to it with an open dialogue without fear of being like seen as a hater or a Jeffrey, as he calls them, the people who deny self-improvement. People like Ethan Klein who just say like, don't go to the gym, don't work out, life is too short to work out, just have fun, waste your time, just get drunk, live in the eternal present moment, do not act like your actions have consequences, your future will be whatever, just focus on the now, and I totally reject that. But I still think there are concepts that are popular in self-improvement, and maybe even takes that Hamza espouses that I just strongly disagree with, and I want to use this video to respond to some of the things that he said. But before we do, if you could take a second to leave a like on this video and subscribe if you haven't yet already, I would greatly appreciate it. We're on the road to 500,000 subscribers, and you're gonna want to be here before the blow up, so yeah. So he released a video called 90% of men are lonely, what are the consequences? And I want to focus on something he says pretty deep into the video.
The thing is, 90% of men are incels. You watching this right now are technically an incel. It doesn't seem like you actually are because incel seems this like scary word of like these dark, like dangerous people. But the definition of incel means involuntarily celibate. That means that they are celibate, like they're not having sex, involuntarily, which means like not by their own wishes. There's a lot of guys in this bottom 90% of incels who act like it is voluntarily. They act like, you know, well, you know, I don't care about getting girls. It's a cope. 90% of men are incels.
So he claims that 90% of men are not consistently having relations with women, and therefore 90% of men are incels. Now, I just disagree with that. First of all, I don't even know if he's correct about the 90% figure. That sounds a little too high, but let's just say he's correct, and 90% of men are not, you know, consistently having relations with women. I would say a high percentage of that is actually by choice. Like, he goes on to say, like, out of that 90% of men, if they were in a room with an attractive woman, would they fold? And like, yeah, obviously the majority of them would, but that doesn't mean that 90% of them are involuntarily not having it happen. And that's for a lot of reasons. Like, it takes time and effort that a lot of people just don't want to put into, like, just for casual hookups. Like, even getting on dating apps, like, that's just kind of a hassle. And it takes time out of your day. Like, a lot of people just don't have time for that. Like, whether they're swamped with work, school, and then they want to spend time with their friends on top of that, a lot of guys are just not gonna, like, see the need to get on a dating app and just spend time swiping and messaging girls just to have, like, a one-night thing. Like, that is voluntary. That is completely by choice. And for the part of it that is involuntary, the time stuff, it's like, that's not because you're ugly, that's just because you're busy with like a lot of stuff. Now, with that being said, I will not deny that there's probably 25 or 20, maybe 15% of guys who have the time to talk to girls and want to talk to girls and form a relationship of some sort, but, you know, they're having trouble because of maybe their looks or their personality. But I'm saying that's like 20-25% max. He's giving you a figure that is 4.5 times as high as mine is. I also find it very ironic how he claims that it's coping to say that most people would not prioritize casual hookups with women. Oh, you're just coping because you're ugly or something, or because you're trying to rationalize the position that you're in, when he's literally made videos talking about how to go monk mode and like avoid distractions, where he talks about like women being a distraction of some sort. It's kind of strange. Like, this guy's a self-improvement channel. He promotes things like going to the gym, focusing on yourself, honing in on your work and stuff like that. So it's kind of strange that he just randomly is like, oh yeah, 90% of men aren't doing it with women, and like, that's a horrible thing. It's like, really, I don't know, casual hookups are just a fruitless endeavor, kind of just a straight up waste of time. It can be demoralizing, you can grow feelings for women that you're really not supposed to, etc, etc. And I just don't see how he's trying to claim that that's like, no, that's a bad thing that guys aren't doing that. A very common phrase you hear in the self-improvement space is a phrase called dopamine detox, getting rid of things that provide you cheap dopamine satisfaction, like like video games, social media, and pornography, right? But then he goes on to say, oh yeah, just like casual hookups with women, like you should be having sex constantly. It's like, I just don't think so.
To be an incel, you don't need to be like these ones that get put on the news when, you know, they've like shot up some school or something like that, because that's more of like a terrorist. That's more of like, you know, this dangerous criminal, killer, murderer, right? An incel simply is by definition just a guy who can't get laid, a guy who can't have sex with girls right now, a guy who's not getting attention from girls. If you get less than 10 matches a day on Tinder, which is more than 90% of men, then you're probably an incel. That's actually fucked, how many guys are in this group. And so there may be some kind of incel uprising, which is an uprising of the 90% of men who no longer have this fundamental need of sex, love, intimacy, and family checked off. And so we may see a lot of more like dangerous criminal murderer incel attacks. We may see more incel attacks where, you know, someone's like shooting up and being violent. And
yeah, you see, here he just goes totally off the rails. Like, he equates guys not wanting to have sex, like this 90%, which again, I just don't know where this figure is coming from. This seems kind of made up, like bro science-y. But he equates the fact that guys aren't pursuing like casual sex into like, oh, guys don't want love and intimacy, and they're not gonna have families, and they're gonna be lonely, and then they're gonna turn into like shooters. Like, it gets a little bit schizo if you're asking me. Like, I get what he's trying to say, like, oh, like guys who are lonely, they're gonna lose the need for, you know, intimacy, but I just don't think like looking at rates of hookups are like a good way to do that. Like, matter of fact, I'd say it's the opposite. Like, I feel like I don't really do hookups because I'm trying to find an actual like partner who I'd like to spend time with, like a person who has like a more substantive value to bring to my life, like, you know, someone who's like beyond just physical, you know? Like, I feel like that's the reason a lot of people do it. It's like the opposite of what he's saying.
would you penetrate yourself? If you wouldn't sleep with yourself, why would some other girl be so excited to sleep with you? Here, look at yourself and think, is that the guy that you want to penetrate you? Imagine you're a girl. Would you get down on your knees to the point that like you've got some friction burn on your fucking kneecaps and suck your own dick?
Yeah, this one I genuinely do not think there's any way you can defend this. Like, YGGB, you gotta go, buddy. This one is the worst I've ever seen. If his channel was just takes like this, I'd ask him to flip a coin. Heads, you're retarded. Tails, you're retarded. And keep flipping the coin until you realize it's the same on both sides. Like, that's the sort of thing we're dealing with here. Do I even have to seriously respond to this? This doesn't make any sense. I'm not sitting here stroking my beard, intellectually pondering what he just said. I don't really think I can give any constructive criticism for this one other than, like, don't let it happen again. I just can't believe this one made it to the internet. Like, this one's crazy. Like, he literally thought, like, okay, if I wouldn't, you know, penetrate myself, then a girl wouldn't let that happen to her. Like, what is that logic at all? That makes no sense. Overall, horrendous take. Should have never let it out there. Next.
So if you put some of your money into a company like Apple, or you put it into like, you know, the big like index funds like Apple and like 500 different companies, you're giving them money to help them with their business, and you're hoping that since they think that you're a good boy, they'll give you a little bit more money in return. I think your PP size has to be very small for that, because if you understand this concept of investing, why would you invest in someone else's business instead of your own?
Because my business is not worth multiple billions of dollars. Like, yeah, actually, I do have more faith in a multinational corporation that has headquarters in like almost every single country where there's not active war going on. Billions a year of net profits every single year. Yeah, I think I trust them with my money. I trust that they're gonna grow and I'm gonna make the money that I invested into them back. He tries to make it sound weird, like you're submissive for investing in Apple, which is like the weirdest angle to go at this from. He's like, oh, you're assuming Apple's gonna think that you're a good boy and send you some of the money back. It's like, well, they're contractually, legally obligated to if they make money. Like, that's how investing works. And it's also not like there's many people investing more money into Apple than their own business to begin with, so they're not mutually exclusive. It's not like, oh, if you invest in Apple, you have no money left to spend on your own company. I think it's the opposite. I think any money that you have left over after investing in everything you can for your business, that goes to like index funds and like the FANG stocks and stuff like that.
This is gonna sound weird. You need to be hit in the face.
Where could this possibly be going?
I will repeat that again. As a young man, you need to be hit in the face consistently.
So just like self-harm? Like, what is he gonna say next? Like, oh, the most masculine thing you can do is like slit your wrists? Are we just gonna go full emo with this? Like, oh yeah, like just get depressed and get beat up every day by the bullies at school, get shoved into lockers. You as a young man need to fear for your safety every single day. Like, no, you don't. You really don't. You know, I said I'm really gonna try to be constructive with my criticism here. How do I criticize a take that's literally just like, oh yeah, you should get assaulted every day? Not even you should, you apparently need. You need this as a young man. Like, so if I go up and I legit just like deck Hamza in the jaw, like, he'll say thank you, right? Like, he needs that. Like, I don't understand. What the fuck is he talking about?
20% of men are literally on the wall. Like 20% of men, they don't nut into tissues. They literally just do it all over the floor and the bed sheets. Like the bottom 20% of men are wall comers.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Then from 20 to 50 is like the really weird guys. They just stink, they're just weird as fuck. You barely see them out or anything. They're the kind of guys who watch porn all the time and everything. When you get to the top 1% of men, at that point, pretty much every woman you ever see is either yours or she's another guy's who's at the top 1%.
So this is where the constructive criticism gets kind of hard because he's not really giving advice here. He's just saying stuff that's wrong. How do you even measure if someone's in the bottom 20% of men? Like if they're broke, if they're out of shape, like what are we measuring? Like, what if you're really out of shape, but you're really rich? Or what if you're really in shape, but you're broke? What if you watch adult content, but you're both rich and in shape? I guess the bottom 20% would be a guy who, like, doesn't work out, is overweight, is broke, and watches pornography. But that's really, you're telling me 1 in 5 men, 20% of men that I shake hands with are like that? They check all 3 of those boxes: broke, fat, and poor. Addicts. That's not the bottom 20%, that's the bottom 5% or like 3%. Those are the biggest losers on the planet. There's no way that that's 1/5 of men and therefore 1/10 of the entire population. Like, yeah, no, I doubt it. I think the reason Hamza says this sort of stuff is because it's a kind of a fear-mongering tactic, which you might think is bad, like, oh, fear-mongering's always bad. I think it actually can be good. Like, he's painting this picture of like, oh, here's these people that you don't want to end up like, so work out. I understand what he's doing, but why not use real statistics and real stories? Why do you have to like make up these weird percentage distributions? He straight up says from 20 to 50% of men are smelly and like have no riz and are addicted to pornography. It's just like where do you come up with that? That's just not true. And I understand, again, he's saying this to scare you away from that lifestyle, which is a good, I'd say, like, intention, but why? Like, why? Just use real stats. This just makes it easier for people who might be skeptical of you to not believe anything you say.
I'm better than like 99% of the people who are my age. I sound like a massive fucking dick. You're not supposed to say that in this modern day, are you? Everyone's so fucking pathetic these days that you're not allowed to say what is a blatant fucking fact.
This one I don't understand the point of. Like, do you just want me to get up and give you a round of applause? Like, yeah, bro, you made it on YouTube. You're a famous YouTuber. That's awesome, man. This isn't even self-improvement. This isn't even like advice for young men or how to help them. He's just saying like, oh, society's gone soft. I can't say how awesome I am. You can say how awesome you are, but like, I don't know why you gotta be like, oh, I'm better than 99% of everyone else. He says his goal is to uplift young men and help them through their struggles and get them out of the trenches, get them to a better spot in life. But at the same time, he goes on to say that like, oh, 99% of the guys my age, I am actually better than them in almost every single way. Even if they're taking my advice, even if they're watching my videos, chances are I probably still ratio them in every single capacity. It's like, well, first of all, the reason that you are so successful and the reason that you have all this money is from people watching your videos, your fans, your viewers. Your success was given to you by the people that you are putting down right now. I mean, not all of them. Like, obviously, the 99% of men that he's saying he's better than that are his age, yeah, they don't all watch his videos. But the ones who are gonna see that short and get put down by him are the ones who watch his content and like him to begin with. So it's weird. Like, if you're his age and you watch his content and then you watch that, well, obviously, he's basically saying like, oh yeah, I'm just better than you. It's just like, I mean, sure, I understand. What's the point though? Like, aren't you supposed to be giving me self-improvement advice, making me better?
You want a girl who's obsessed with you? I'm gonna teach you some fucking truthful, like somewhat dark shit, but you want a girl who's obsessed with you, bro? Make her feel all the emotions possible. Make her cry. Make her happy. Excite her. Scare her. Make her feel any emotion possible. Disgust her. Make her angry. Make her so happy. Make her like so happy she cries.
Wait, hold on a second. Didn't this guy just say like 20 to 50% of men are disgusting and stinky and addicted to pornography? And that's like repulsive to women? Now he's saying like, actually, yeah, be like that around women? Well, I don't understand the advice here. That advice too is so bad. Like, do not make a woman feel every single emotion. I mean, if it happens naturally throughout the time you know someone, like maybe over weeks or months, like, you know, you obviously are gonna feel different emotions, but don't go out of your way to like switch up the mood randomly, like while you're experiencing something. That's bizarre.
And feminine women are only attracted to men who are like stoic, cold rocks, even though they don't want to admit this.
This one could be true, but I just think it's worth saying that like stoicism and, you know, being quiet and reserved and only speaking when you have something important to say and not showing any emotion, I'm a big believer in something known as the halo effect, meaning with, like, depending on how attractive you are, that's kind of like how your personality is interpreted. So I think that if you're like quiet and reserved, but if you're very attractive, that's going to be seen as mysterious, stoic, masculine. But if you're quiet and reserved and you're ugly, you're going to be seen as weird, socially awkward, introverted, and inept. So that's why I think this advice kind of, I don't know, kind of just fails to account for that. Like, oh, women will be attracted to this. It's like, okay, well, the guy who's going to try that, who maybe is just not that good looking, is not going to see results. And I'm not saying this to be black-pilled, I'm just sort of saying that, like, generally when I hear advice like this, it's like, okay, behave this way and women will like you. It's like, nah, you can't just, like, follow a behavioral script and expect results without factoring in anything else. That's why you could perfectly replicate the god-tier pickup line you saw someone use on YouTube Shorts and get a completely different response in person. Or something else I noticed is that there's actually a curve with humor. Like, if you're attractive and you tell mid-jokes around girls, they'll laugh way harder than if you're like an ugly guy telling like hilarious jokes that would actually kill at a stand-up comedy club. But yeah, Hamza isn't like wrong with what he's saying here. I just think that there's like a lot more to it, which he probably knows. It's a YouTube short. Anyway, that's all I really got for today's video. There's probably a lot more I can get into, but I just think I wanted to share those main clips that I saw. And overall, like I said, I think Hamza is a good YouTuber, and a lot of the good advice that he gives, you'll see pretty clearly when you watch his content. I just thought some of this stuff was a little ridiculous. I mean, when he's just pulling things out of his ass, like these things that he just makes up in order to prove a point, he just sounds kind of ridiculous, and I just wanted to say that in this video. But anyway, if you guys have not enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Bye.